We are talking Death Ranch. This one directed and written by Charlie Steeds. That Steeds is actually quite a prolific, low-budget British filmmaker, knocking out lots of different kind of horror flicks. I've enjoyed quite a few of them. So this movie is his turn to try a blaxploitation revenge horror film. It takes place in the 1970s in Tennessee, and we have a young man, an African-American man who has escaped from prison for armed robbery. And he is met by his sister and brother to try and, hide out for a few weeks and ultimately try and evade the law. And they decide to go to this kind of rundown ranch, more like a farmhouse to be fair, but this kind of rundown ranch, I guess you'd say, just to try and lay low and let it all kind of die down. However, they seem to have picked somewhat of the wrong land, as this territory seems to be occupied by a vicious gang of Ku Klux Klan members who are not only Ku Klux Klan members, but they're cannibal Ku Klux Klan members as well. And as our gang run afoul of this clan, obviously violence erupts. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out. So let's talk about what works. This is a stylized kind of exploitation movie, certainly influenced by sort of grindhouse cinema. I would even say a little bit of kind of Tarantino-esque influence as well. Certainly has this kind of like hyper-violent, feel to it, where it's all kind of like just turned up to be not quite realistic, and goes beyond that to sort of like ultra-violence, and everything is kind of over-exaggerated to a certain degree. So if you like kind of like stylized kind of grindhouse cinema, then I think this may be a movie for you. I have to say, this movie does have some extreme violence in it and gore. I was kind of a little bit unsure how to categorise this, because is it more of an action film or is it more of a horror film? But because we've got kind of cannibals, and I kind of class this maybe as an action horror, best of both worlds. But there is some great kind of work done with sort of practical effects here. Really, actual ones that will probably make you wince. I mean, it's a little bit, it's not particularly realistic, but nonetheless, you appreciate, real practical effects, prosthetics, makeup, things like that. They're staying away from using CGI blood squibs and things like this. And I really, really enjoyed the ultra violence mixed in with this kind of practical gore and stuff like that to really somewhat kind of make you sit uncomfortably on certain times. Let me just kind of say that. I really enjoyed our kind of trio of siblings. I actually thought they had a really good chemistry, and I like the fact that obviously they all kind of seem to take different roles. The older brother seems to be more of the father figure, and they both kind of want to look after their sister, but she kind of feels like she kind of wants to look after them at the same time. I really kind of like their sort of family unit, and I did feel that they did a good job here of portraying, a genuine kind of family unit who have had their fair share of struggles and kind of stuff like that. The movie is pretty well paced. It's quite a relatively short film, and once the action gets going, it never lets up. So it's pretty much a bloody riot from kind of more or less start to finish. So I think if you like, high octane action, then this is going to be a one maybe to check out. Maybe what doesn't work. I think some of the acting is a little bit of a mixed bag. Some of the performances I think were okay, but some of them looked a little bit uncomfortable with their kind of roles. And I'm not going to point out who, but there were a couple of performances here where I felt the actors were a little bit struggling and seemed to be a little bit uncomfortable in doing what they were doing. And there are some actors as well who I think maybe overact to a certain degree. My real biggest problem with this film is its portrayal of the Ku Klux Klan members in a number of ways. So the decision to make them cannibals obviously makes it more of a horror film, maybe more of a fantasy than kind of. I mean, I don't know if that actually happened, back then, but it kind of I think undercuts some of the seriousness that may have happened with these kind of situations, and almost makes light of it to a certain degree. So I don't know if that was. I mean, I'm just saying it could be a problem for some people. It just seems to, any drama that is kind of in this movie, I think is sucked out by some of the more schlocky elements, whilst it could have been more of a hard-hitting dramatic movie, but it ends up being more of a schlocky movie. I enjoy schlocky movies, but I got a feeling, it kind of may put some people off, that it kind of goes in a little bit more of a sort of fantasy direction. Maybe worse, though, is the decision to have some of the Ku Klux Klan members act like just idiots. And they just seem like cartoon characters, because they just seem like bumbling idiots. And I understand the reason why you want to have, our Ku Klux Klan members seem moronic, and not intelligent. And I do understand that. But the problem is that they don't seem like real people. They just seem like cartoons, because they're so dopey and do things that just are so sort of just not what real people would do. But whilst our trio of siblings play it pretty straight, if that makes sense. So they're kind of the two sort of sides that are at odds to a certain degree. And again, it kind of undercuts some of the any sort of tension that would have been built. And ultimately it becomes like, a whack-a-mole in a weird way, where we just have these kind of like cartoonishly over-the-top kind of clan members who seem to be bumbling. And there's even a couple of jokes that are kind of, and again, it's just it's a weird tonal kind of like things that have to do this. So I think there's some decisions there that maybe, I think, make the movie a little bit tonally all over the place. Because there are times when it's some serious violence being put upon people, and they're kind of obviously based on a real subject matter, yet we have kind of cartoony kind of bad guys, and then we have them kind of like cannibals as well. It just seems like a little bit of a, an odd mix. I don't think you needed to have the cannibal side of things, or have cannibals and maybe not the Ku Klux Klan. It just seems like an odd mix all in the one, to be honest with you. The movie has little regard for physics, I'll just say that. Again, taking out of any dramatic elements that this movie have and going more into that kind of like that schlocky element. Overall, though, I gotta say it's a well-made, schlocky B-movie exploitation film that if you want to watch some ultra-violence being put upon Klan members, then you're certainly not going to be disappointed with this one. And I gotta appreciate the kind of the bloody gore and the kind of the visceral nature of the movie. Like I said, the tonal issues may not bother some people, but I just didn't think it quite gelled for me personally. But I will give it a 6 out of 10 because I do think as a kind of just a revenge flick and an action horror film, there's some well executed sequences and kind of like set pieces with likeable characters. 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.